Stephenson went from being a rejected sports TV intern to interviewing NBA legends, becoming a pro basketball commissioner, and rebuilding his purpose after the pandemic through audacious living. And we are here at the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert Plank to find out all about it. We are brought to you by dfypodcast.com, where we handle the podcast backend, editing, publishing, and promotion, so you can focus on the interview. And today's interview we're discussing, among many other topics, is this bold framework, which means better than yesterday, outlast adversity, live your truth, and disrupt the norm. So we are exactly here in the right place to talk about overcoming obstacles, roadblocks, achieving greatness, and so much more. So Mr. Audley Stephenson, how are you? How you been?
Robert, this is awesome, man. I'm doing great. It's awesome to be here with you and connect again. And like I said, I like the beard look, man. I like that. It's a nice looking out going on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I used to think okay, like have it totally clean shaven, but I guess with the way that the trends go, sometimes you look at like celebrities and they look better with it. So I figured gave it a shot, and I was surprised. So I'm sticking with it.
It's working, my friend. It's working.
Well,
I love
very
it.
nice. And so that's what's new with me, like a beard, but what's new with you? What has you so fired up and passionate, excited?
Love life. I mean, I'm usually generally excited. If you know me well enough, you know I'm always excited and happy and about something around the corner. Lately, it's the book. We that's something that the book is Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever: How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World. It's official release December 1st. It's on pre-order now on Amazon. But the big thing about that is the book is in line with everything I've done, my work, and it's just a continuance. And that's what kind of gets me excited, because it's like another avenue, another chapter, if you will, to continue this message of audacity. And that stems from the podcast, the Audacious Living Podcast. You're seeing the theme, right? The Audacious Living Podcast, where for the last 6 years, I've about 700 episodes encouraging people to live their best audacious life and sharing stories of bravery and courage and inspiration and reinvention and hope and all these wonderful things that I truly and have come to believe, not come to believe, but truly believe already are inside of us. And it's just a matter of unlocking that. And so I kind of give an analogy. Like if you think of life as like one big racetrack, we're all cars on a racetrack. Okay, Robert, you got your red trim on your fancy race car there. Well, the engine, the Audacity is the engine inside of our cars. That determines how fast and how far we go. And so we all have it. It's just a matter of unlocking it, tapping into it, and hitting the gas pedal and going.
Well, very nice. Well, you've learned a lot, even from your own up and coming, but also with the podcast, right? You and I are a couple of prolific podcast guys, and you know how it is. Like you say, you're circling around that racetrack. There's a lot of repeat lessons, but then every lap around the track is completely different, isn't it? It's never the same way twice. And so all these different guests, like sometimes you get the repeat lessons, you make the connections, you learn new things, new takes on things. Sometimes the old lessons fall away and come back. And so you mentioned this term audacity, and it works great because of your name, right? Like it's right out there on brand. And so audacity means a confident, daring quality, or a willingness to take bold risk. And so you say you've got the book now, Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever, and you have the podcast, the Audacious Living Podcast. And so, like, what have you learned from those 700 episodes? Is there any standouts or commonalities?
Well, the common theme at the end of the day, that if you are looking to live a more audacious life, it has to be intentional. It doesn't, while for some it may happen by accident. I oftentimes use myself as an example. I look at my parents, and they were just, I can recognize it now, but growing up, I didn't realize how audacious they were in terms of how they acted, how they took risks, how they encouraged me, how they allowed me to be myself. I just knew it as that's the way my life was, and that's how I moved through the world. And it wasn't until I had the language, I'm going, oh my gosh, like this is what audacity is. And while there were some inherent elements that were inside of me, that piece, that question, and we all have that, Robert, where we're about to do something, we go, oh, I don't know, and maybe I'll hold back, right? The audacity is what pushes us past that doubt. And so that's where the intentionality comes in, recognizing that we are going to experience that, recognizing we're going to have some doubts. I'll tell you quickly, I remember when I So I've been podcasting since like '08. So I'm literally approaching 20 years of podcasting, and I've been doing it for a long, long time. And I love it, the space. I've had 5 or 6 different podcasts in that window. My first one being the NBA podcast that you talked about, where I'm talking to him, and I'm giddy as a basketball geek. I'm loving talking to Kobe and LeBron. But as time went on, I got into different podcasts and experiment and try different things, and the whole space has been lovely for me. In 2020, when the pandemic came along, and we all know what happened. We lost all the things that we love when we were separated. I realized now I'd probably stepped away from podcasting about 4 or 5 years. I hadn't had anyone actively, but I said, hey, I'm going to get back into it again. And I remember immediately, and I remember this is the guy that up until this point, I'd had 4 or 5 podcasts already. I've been doing it for a lot. People knew me as a podcaster. I'm about to start a new one. And I had this voice going, hey, can you still do this? Like, do you know what you're doing? The doubts, right? Do you think you still got it? You're just gonna be another clouded voice in the podcast space. Who's gonna listen to you? Why even bother? Do you still know how to do this? And this is a guy that's got the experience, and I'm having those doubts. So my point is that it's natural. They are going to come, but those who move past it, are intentional about moving past it, are the ones that will truly live their best audacious life. The other thing that I really come to learn and understand, there's a bunch of things, but you talk about stand-up. The other one is around confidence versus courage, right? There's a belief that I have to have confidence before I have the courage to do something. And it's actually the other way around. You step into something blindly, not knowing what's around the corner, taking a chance on something you've never, ever done before. And through that experience, that's how you build your confidence. It's no different than getting on a bike for the first time. You've never learned you didn't know how to ride a bike, but you got on. You had the courage to get on the bike. You might have fallen. Maybe you didn't. But nonetheless, it was part of the lesson, the learning process. And so those are some big things that stand out in my mind. And every single person who I've ever spoken to, that seems to be the consistent theme. Those two seem to be consistent. I know there's a bunch of others, but those ones definitely stand out in my mind.
Wonderful. And those are some big ideas. This idea that, well, it looks so easy for others, but you don't see all the other failures that led to it.
Oh, man.
And it's really tempting to think, okay, well, there's this thing in front of me that I should do. It will improve my life in all these ways, but it's hard and it's scary. So I'll just put that on the wayside and I'll wait for some easier path. And then you totally ignored all this great stuff that was just right there past the barrier. And it's reassuring, right? Because it's like you're not alone, and we're all kind of like in this human journey together. And these people that are successful, they had the same negative self-talk and same doubt as you, but you found a way to push through and get forward. And so as far as what you've pushed through, like, I know you say that you had this doubt about like the podcast and you had like the NBA show, but like, where have you really stumbled and struggled?
I think, as being a human being, life presents all sorts of obstacles, all sorts of challenges, daily living. But, as a guy I've had to battle through a divorce and what that looks like. And that, I will tell anyone, my heart goes out to anyone that's struggling with that, because that isn't an easy process. No one, steps into a marriage with the expectation of having a divorce. And so you go in wholeheartedly with all good intention. And somewhere along the way, things happen, and now you're in a battle that goes beyond you, because you're getting in the courts and legal system, and things are out of your control. And you have to recognize that, what's happening to me, like there's some things you're in a process where there's parts of it you have full control of, and there's other parts you have zero control of, right? And so there was that aspect of it. Over the course of my marriage, my then wife, or ex-wife now, had falsely alleged assault. And so, I was immediately arrested, and that becomes a whole other journey. And now you're away from family, you're incarcerated, and all these things that come with it. And you're sitting there going, how the heck did I get here? Now what, right? And now, and so it's how do I get out of here? And then now what? How do I move through this, right? And so it's persevering through the adversity. And so you mentioned the BOLD framework, and so better than yesterday is the B, and it really encourages continuous learning, right? So you climbed that mountain last week, and it was a big mountain. I'm glad you got through it, but I hope you get to the tomorrow. There's another bigger one that you can attack, right? So it's always not resting on your laurels. The second letter is Outlast adversity, and I highlight that because challenges are a part of life. No one's gonna knock on your door and say, "Hey, Robert, at 3:00, some really messed up stuff's gonna happen to you, and so get ready." You just have to respond in the moment. And so part of our response is outlasting the adversity, because I truly, truly, truly believe that on the other side of that is where our greatness lies. And greatness has nothing to do with material wealth or riches or anything of that nature. It's a personal growth and development that we naturally happens when we go through bad stuff. But you can't get through bad stuff unless you outlast it. And so that to me is just some of the things that I've had to figure out and do. I grew up as a young child. My parents split up when I was just a child. I was 6 months old. My parents split up. So I grew up my whole life having no idea what my father even looked like. I had no idea who he was, nothing about him. And it wasn't until I became a father myself, and ironically enough, my daughter was 6 months old. This man reappeared in my life and said, "Hey, I'm your father." Only to 3.5 years later for him to pass away. And so, it's working through all those feelings and emotions and understanding what's happening in the moment, but also understanding what is in the scope of your control. And so that's I think that's a huge recognition in life for a lot of us. And if we can figure out and understand, this is what I can control, this is within my scope, this isn't, and I have to allow it to do what it's got to do. I love that.
Very nice. Well, I love that message, and so does my son. And
lots
of
love.
That's out of all the tools, like, that's so helpful, isn't it? The locus of control, they call it, because
that's right.
If you don't have your life sorted out and you're like ignoring what you can control and getting frustrated about what you can't, so even just that separating of the two, it helps you so much as far as what to watch your toilet video. It helps you so much with your focus. And as you say, like, you outlast, because when you watch your toilet videos, when you say outlast, it's like a heavy storm visualizes in my mind. That's right? Exactly. The storm comes through, and you just like make sure the windows are closed, the roof's on tight, waiting for the storm to pass, and then you get to work on cleaning up the mess.
That's right. Not saying you can't. We're not saying stop the storm. We're not saying make the storm go away, because that's not within our scope of control. It's outlasting it, which also is really, really important, because that tells us that it's finite. It's not forever, right? It's going to start, but it's going to stop, and you just have to get to the other side of that stoppage.
Beautiful, wonderful. And so you got these messages, and you have this podcast. And what led you to creating a book? Because a book is great because it's like, it's permanent, it's solid, it has all the best stuff in there. But then there's like some hard decisions you have to make, don't you? You have to decide like what order of things, what gets left out. And so how did the book come about?
The book was really just an extension of what was happening in the podcast. And so the book itself, I think it's really neat. And I wrote it, obviously, so I'm going to be behind it, but I really think it's neat because it's a melding of sort of three different things here. First off, I share a lot of stories in my personal life. I've shared a couple with you already that come from direct challenges that I've gone through, but I also share lots of experiences, positive learnings. And it's important here. We can talk about the challenges, but that's not where they stop. Because for me, it's like, okay, yeah, this bad thing happened, but how'd you get out of it? Then what'd you do? Then what'd you learn? Then who helped you? That to me is the exciting part. That's why I get a popcorn out and go, tell me more, right? Because that's the exciting part for me. So there's certainly some personal things in that I share. But then also, because I've had the privilege and the honor of having so many incredible guests on my podcast, such as yourself, to share their insights and their lessons and things that they learned, I've been able to glean a lot of insights from many of the guests, and they also contain in the book. And then lastly, there's a lot of frameworks I developed, i.e. the BOLD framework is one of them. They've also been incorporated into the book. And so it comes together, kind of those three pieces to form this book. And really, it was just, I just felt this urge to, again, we were having wonderful, I'm blessed to have wonderful conversations, but I wanted to extend that further and find a way to sort of capture some of that gold. It's only, the way I see it, I'm only scratching the surface. There's no way I've dug all the way in. There might be another 3 or 4 volumes, who knows, right? But it's just scratching the surface, and to meld all this together to share this wisdom that I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to.
Well, very cool. Very nice. Yeah, you make it more permanent because I can relate to, you sometimes do a podcast interview, as you said, I was on your show, and sometimes like a year or two passes and you maybe dimly remember that episode of that person, but it's like so off in the past, it's better to kind of, get it in writing in the forefront
Yeah,
and
yeah.
get those recurring patterns in there. And so after performing 700 episodes, like I'm sure you figured out some like podcast and conversation and social skills, because it is kind of fun, isn't it, to like dig
Oh my
in deep
gosh.
into that
Oh,
weakness and the overcoming. But I'm curious, like, were your first few podcasts, this one or the ones before, like, were you awkward at first talking to like LeBron and Kobe, or like what was your transformation like beefing up these podcast skills?
I'd say I'd be a liar if I didn't say I wasn't terrible the first time around, because you are. I think I oftentimes say anything you start for the brand first time. So we're always a beginner, right? Anytime you're a beginner at
Yeah.
anything, chances are you're going to suck at it, right? Like, I mean, if I can go back and delete the very first podcast I ever did, I probably would, because it's like, you almost cringe listening to it, right? So,
Yeah.
but I think that's part of the journey, right? And so this is where the audacity comes in. So you make that first step. It's not that great. You have the opportunity to make that second step. And how many of us, Robert, decide, well, no, I didn't go right the first time, I'm going to stop altogether, and we never make that second step. And so therein lies the audacity to keep trudging, to keep moving forward. And what happens is, as you start to build up the reps, as you start to understand how you best operate and gain rhythm and momentum and learn, and this thing that they call experience, as you gain the experiences, that you just naturally get better. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that talked about 10,000 hours to be an expert at anything you do, right? Like, and so you've got to build up that time. I don't know how he got to that number. I don't know how accurate it is. It just sounds great. But what I agree with him, it takes a lot of time continuously doing something to get good at it. And so for me, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've talked to thousands of people, literally, about whatever is important to them, whatever matters to the world, whatever, the change makers, whatever they're out there doing. I've been privileged and blessed enough to have those conversations, and so I'm confident in my ability, and that's how you grow it. You're not great the first time, and that's okay. I mean, baseball, you get 3 strikes for a reason, right? You didn't do it the first time. Okay, try again. Now, there are those special few, Robert, that will, nail it out of the park on the first swing, and those individuals are elite level, and they do exist. There's no question about that. They got it naturally in their genes, wherever. Those people do exist. But by and large, the large majority of the population, the rest of us normal people, anything we try for the first time, we're probably going to suck at it.
Yeah,
So
and even if you are a great ball player, if you batting 300, you're like in the top,
yeah,
right?
that's
So
right. You're in the
even
Hall of Fame.
30% is good.
Yeah, I'll put you in the Hall of Fame, man.
Right. Yeah, so I'm sensing a common theme here in saying that, well, like you label the difficulty, right? And a lot of people think that, well, difficulty means I'm doing something wrong or I shouldn't do that. And like all these lessons you're sharing is that, no, the thing that's tough and scary in front of you, that's what you should do. And that's what all these other successful people have done. They've proceeded despite the fear. And so you've learned so much. You had these ups and downs and surprises. In these last few minutes of our conversation, I want to make sure we focus on what's important to you, Mr. Audley Stephenson. So do you think there might be a missing question in our conversation that I should be asking you, I just don't know to ask you?
If I were to think about the missing question, I would say that the most important lesson Audley Stephenson has learned, that he's been able to carry him through life. That'd be the question I'd ask. I'd say, Robert, you forgot to ask that question.
Ooh, this will be a good one. So what is that most important lesson?
Oh, I got to answer it? I didn't realize that was part
of
of it.
It's not yet. It's the question and the answer, right? One leads to the next.
I would say that for the longest time, I used to, I don't know where this came from, but for the longest time, I believed in this notion I was a self-made man. I did everything by myself. All my achievements were my own. I didn't need nobody's help. I did it. I had no one to thank. It was just all me. And I've thankfully come to the realization that that's farce. We don't get anywhere in life on our own. And if it's someone extends a kind word or a gesture, or, hey, you did a great job, that's a piece of encouragement, that helps fortify us, that builds us, right? And we, in that exact moment when someone says, and think about, right, we've all had that where someone compliments us on something. Hey, you did a really good job at that. That was great. For that moment, we feel good. That gives us that boost, that kickstart, right? And that fortifies. I mean, sometimes in some instances, it gives us a validation to keep doing it. And so I've had lots of those moments. I just didn't recognize them. And when I think about how long I held on to that belief, I dishonored those that gave and poured into me for so long. And so it's really the point is we don't get anywhere alone. I definitely have. And sure, it's Audley Stephenson who you see here by himself, sharing and excited and displaying his energy. I had a lot of help along the way from a lot of people growing up, where they're mentors, or, I talk about not having a father, and people who stepped in and played a father figure role, even if it was just for a brief moment in my life. Those things add and feed into who we are. And so when I stand here and I reflect on my life, I can look back at all that's taken place and all that's fed into me. Like I'm a product of just an entire village and community. And I think that's been the biggest lesson that I've learned.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. That's wonderful that you're made up of all these pieces of other people that you met along the way. And it works both ways, doesn't it? Other people have lifted you up, as you say. They don't have to necessarily do something big and grand. It might have just been that one word of encouragement, and it stuck with you for the past 18, 19 years plus. But then also, that's a good reason for you to be an encourager and a motivator of others, because it's such a shortcut to be a critic and say, oh, that'll never work. Or if someone did something great, right? They made that great like sports play, or they wrote that great article or made that book. It's so easy to flip to page 82 and say, hey, I don't like this. And aren't I so smart because I found something I don't like? Well, it's not, because you can say one little comment to someone and it kind of destroys their dreams. Or you could be someone that gets them to want to do more and encourage them for all the wonderful things they've done. So why not be that positive force? It's a great lesson for us all. And so if we're super duper curious about some next steps here, we know the website is bestaudaciouslife.com. And then the podcast is the Audacious Living Podcast. And then that book that you mentioned is Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever: How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World. But as someone says, I want to take these next steps, what's the next logical step? Where should someone go?
I'm active on social media, Robert, and I love to engage. I share a lot. The other thing, when you like I said, 700 episodes, so there's a lot of content. I probably release anywhere from 12 to 15 episodes a month. And I'm always putting out stuff, always, because the lessons aren't for me, right? They're not for me to hold on to and, oh, wow, that's great, and put in it's to be shared. And so it's funny because, the subtitle of my book is How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World. And it very much is about, if I'm stepping into my audacious self, and when I talk about audacity, it really is a life philosophy. So when I step into my audacious self, I'm unleashing my inner greatness. And the ripple effects is how we change the world, because now we're impacting others positively, right? And so whether it's a kind word or a deed or an act or whatever, that's making a difference. And so that has been how I move through the world. And I very much share what I've got, and I put it out there for others to see, and they can take what they take. I'm not here to tell you this is what you should do and you shall. And it's not about that at all, because we're all going to hear the messages at different points of time in our lives, and we're going to hear and receive them differently. So my responsibility is to take what I've learned or take what I've gathered and share. And so, so I'm active on social media at The Odd Man. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, X now, at The Odd Man, which is not ODD, it's AUD. So The AUDMAN. And then obviously the other platform is Audley Stephenson, LinkedIn. I'm big there too, and you can find me there. So absolutely reach out. Say you heard me on the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert, with the bearded Robert Plank, and I will definitely say what's up. But no, this has been super awesome, and happy to be in this space with you doing what we're doing.
You're a super awesome. And that play on words makes me laugh. The Odd Man, but it's AUD. So you find him on Instagram and all those other platforms. And then where we really want you to go is Amazon and get this book by Audley Stephenson, Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever: How Unleashing Your Inner Greatness Can Change the World. And the ripple effect, it's a metaphor that I like a lot, because it tells us that, well, like we said a few minutes ago, like there's giving back to others, because keeping your ideas to yourself is selfish. They're meant to be shared. But the ripple effect is like, well, you help person A, and then that they inspire person B, and they help person
Yeah,
C, and it
that's
just
right.
like you end up like touching thousands, if not millions, of
That's
lives, and
right.
people that you never have met or will not meet or don't even know your name, but because you've helped those people in your circle, they help those in their circle. It's
Yeah.
such a amazing metaphor, and we need to pick up on this positivity because we have a choice, don't we? We could watch
Always.
reality TV or browse the TikToks and just like waste our brain, or
Right.
educate ourselves and inspire ourselves by listening to the Audacious Living Podcast by Audley Stephenson and getting this book, Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever. So as we're checking out the AUD man on social media and we're going to bestaudaciouslife.com, it's time
Right.
for the scary part of the podcast, Mr. Audley Stephenson, where I try to stump you, I try to put you on the spot by
Okay.
asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
Quote or lesson. Yeah, you are stumping me. Quote or lesson to put me on the spot. Years ago, so, and this is actually probably one of my earliest lessons. So when I started the sort of podcasting space, I had an NBA podcast, like I had mentioned. We were here in Toronto, and the Toronto Raptors gave us media credentials. We got to interview players, and that podcast ran for about 5 years. I had a partner of mine, and we kind of did this together. And so when that ran its course, I stepped into another podcast because I just loved it. At that point, I was hooked. I was like, I want to talk about more stuff. And I really thought about, what things mattered to me. And I decided to focus in on leadership. And so I had a leadership development podcast. And it was funny because there was a quote that I had heard, and I sort of built my whole foundation around this. And it was, and I don't have it verbatim because I'm going to butcher it, but essentially it was, if your actions can inspire more, help people dream more, help people do more, then you are a leader. And it really it has always stuck with me because it was around understanding that we all have the leadership potential inside of us. In the same way we have all that inner audacity inside of us, we all have that leadership potential inside of us. And it's a matter of just taking action. And it's so funny because as I'm talking out loud about this, I'm definitely seeing a correlation between what drove that leadership podcast to the work that I've done now, and it's still that audacity, that common thread, right? The audacity, because if my actions are inspiring others to dream more, do more, become more, then I'm a leader. Well, again, if it's my actions, that's the key, right? But I don't take that action unless I have the audacity to do so. And so that was tremendous to me because that was one of my earliest lessons, and not even realizing that was starting the whole audacity or audaciousness frame of thinking. And so that would be the one I'd look to.
Very good. And you got the quote exactly right. You self-deprecated a little bit, but you got it almost word for word. That's from John Quincy Adams, sixth president of the United States.
Yeah.
If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And that's
right.
great to overcome that imposter syndrome and say, hey, I'm helping others. So
I appreciate the fact check there, right? Thank you so much. Awesome.
In real time, even, right? We have the technology to do it. And I didn't want to leave us hanging with an incomplete quote. And
there you go.
And that's the power of listening to a podcast such as yours, because it's like we get this randomness and this minutia, and it's kind of like when you have a guest on your show or you pick up someone's book, you get like the best bits, right? And like they might have spent years, decades figuring something out. And once they did, well, hey, you can shortcut a lot of pain on your own. You won't shortcut all the pain, but you'll be in a much better position if you have that education from the book or from the podcast. And so once again, that podcast, the Audacious Living Podcast, and the book, Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever by Mr. Audley Stephenson. It's always such a pleasure. So thanks for taking the time. I'm very inspired speaking with you.
I love it, Robert. I'm glad you're in my network. Thank you, and keep doing the great work that you're doing, my friend.